The River Travel Podcast is about travel stories along America's rivers and the road trips that will take you there. Come with us as we chat with festivals, attractions, eateries, and destinations that call River Valleys home. Come for a visit and find out more at rivertravelmagazine.com.
On this episode, we are chatting with Melissa Cummins, marketing manager for Mark Twain Boyhood Home and Museum, located in Hannibal, Missouri. All right, can you give us a little background on the museum?
Sure. Well, the Mark Twain Boyhood Home and Museum actually is 9 properties. A lot of people don't realize that. We have 2 museums and 5 historic homes, plus the Tom and Hook statue. So we do maintain quite a few different facilities. All the historic homes and 1 museum, the Interpretive Center, are located adjacent to each other in the historic area and Hill Street. That's where Mark Twain's Boyhood Home is located, and that's the actual address of the home where young Sam Clemens grew up. And the museum properties have evolved. All the historic homes are on the Register of Historic Places. We maintain the homes and keep them as close to the integrity of the actual home as possible.
You know, just going through your website and actually just learning about, the museum over the last couple of years, it seems like you have, so many events going on. Like you said, this multi kind of sort of facilities that are kind of all over throughout the town. What are you excited for first for visitors to see when they come to the museum?
Well, Brent, I think you just kind of hit on the nail right there, was the changes that we have done in a lot of the properties. In 2016, the Laura Hawkins home, which we call the Becky Thatcher house, was completely restored. And we have new interpretations inside that building that's dedicated to childhood in the 1850s. So you can see what it would be like for a young Sam Clemens actually growing up in Hannibal, Missouri. And you can follow through the home and you can follow through the lives of each of the characters in the book. Jim, a slave; Huck, homeless; Tom, who was poor; and Becky, who was more wealthy. And you can see how their lives differed and varied in a small community just based on their socioeconomic status. And also the home introduces guests and tourists to both the real Laura Hawkins and the character Becky Thatcher. In the story, Tom talks about throwing the pansy. She throws the pansy over the fence at him across the street. Well, she really did live across the street from Samuel Clemens. So it's really interesting when you come to be able to get a firsthand view and see how realistic all of the story was and how it was based off of his real life. Also, the J.M. Clemens Justice of the Peace Office. Mark Twain's father, Judge Marshall Clemens, he was a local justice here in Hannibal, Missouri at the time, and we have his law office. And it was relocated adjacent to the Becky Thatcher house, and it was completely restored around 2017. It was reopened, and it has new interpretations too. We delve a lot more into what a justice of the peace was, what their position was, how it affected the Clemens family. And also we kind of delve a little bit into slavery at that particular point. Then adjacent to the J.M. Clemens, we have the Pilaster House, but more commonly referred to as Grant's Drugstore. And that just reopened this spring. It was shut down because it was basically sinking, and it was taken down to its existing timbers, jacked up about 4 to 6 inches. And as much of the existing material was repurposed and put back on the home. And there are new interpretations now. It is a pharmacy downstairs, which it was originally. But then as you go upstairs, you're introduced to the Grant's family, Dr. Grant and his family, and how their relationship with the Clemens family developed. The Clemens family moved in with the Grant's family and lived upstairs in that small area when the Clemens family were kind of down and out and didn't have money, and they had to rent out their house. So they moved across the street and lived with Dr. Grant and his family. You also see interpretations on what a doctor's office would have looked like at that time. What were the diseases that affected the citizens of Hannibal, Missouri during that time frame? What did they have to deal with? And what was medicine like? We have videos on how pills were made, and just a lot of really interactive exhibits. We've updated things to bring them more family friendly, a lot of things for kids, but also keeping it true to what their purpose was.
It's really exciting. I always knew that, this is based on true events and true people. I just never really realized the depth of it. It's quite interesting. Just looking at your website again with the different events, the different buildings, and all the different activities. I also, found on here that you have a number of events from live music to shows and things like that. Could you give us like a rundown of different events throughout the year?
One of the purposes of the Mark Twain Boyhood Hope Museum is to keep Mark Twain's life relevant, but also to bring the museum into the community and the community to the museum. And one of the ways we do that is by Music Under the Stars, which is the music program that you were talking about. I have been working with Music Under the Stars for 7 years now. It is a wonderful opportunity. It's free for our local Hannibalians, we call them, as well as tourists from all over the world. And every Thursday evening, June through August, we bring in live performers, and we have a stage that's on Hill Street. It sets between the Boyhood home and Grant's drugstore. So it's a beautiful backdrop with the river behind the bands. And we bring in a variety of music every Thursday evening. And it's sponsored by the Missouri Arts Council, as well as a lot of businesses throughout Hannibal and private individuals who help us bring these artists in so people can experience live music and just the camaraderie of being together. So we always say, grab your friends, your favorite chair, and come on down for Music Under the Stars.
So, I mean, that sounds great. What are some of your favorite activities to do in Hannibal? It can be about the museum, or just what do you like to do in the area?
Right. Well, I mentioned earlier, I gave a guided tour this morning, and one of the things I enjoy doing is the riverboat. We have the Mark Twain riverboat. It's a small paddle wheel boat here on the Mississippi. Captain Steve Terry and his wife, Sandy, run that boat. I love to take the tour on the boat. And just because it's just a beautiful sightseeing tour, it's relaxing, and it's just fun. He also does dinner tours. So that's one of the things that I really enjoy. And then also, Hannibal has, even though we're a small community of just over 18,000 people, we have numerous parks and trails. We have the only reserve for the Indiana brown bat here because Hannibal is based on caves. The city sits upon numerous caves, and there's the largest population of the Indiana brown bat is located here. And so we have a natural bat preserve, and there's a trail that winds up and around the caves. And I just love to walk on that. So there's opportunities to get out in nature here. We also have Riverview Park. It's also a historic landmark. If you want to just kind of research that, it's an amazing park. It's a prairie landscape style, and it's just huge. It's a beautiful natural park. Those are kind of some of the fun things. We also have Mississippi River, of course, and there are people that like to canoe and kayak on the Mississippi. I'm not game for that. I kind of to the Salt River, which is a smaller location, but there's a lot of opportunities here in Hannibal to do a lot of fun things.
So, maybe for the first time visitors, what can people expect when coming, for a visit? Anywhere from, hospitality to food to dining, what can people expect?
Right. Main Street on Hannibal, Missouri is very quaint. It's beautiful. There's a lot of very old homes with beautiful architecture that have been maintained. There's a historic Hannibal committee that makes sure that they stay true. You can just walk up and down Main Street, and there's the local coffee shops, and there's the quilt shops, and there's a clock shop, and there are ice cream parlors, chocolate shop. There are a lot of very unique little shops that are all privately owned by local citizens. Some of them have been in their families for years. It's just a very family-oriented, nice little community to go to. There's usually live music every weekend, whether it's at Music Under the Stars on a Thursday. We have a brewery that has music, as well as Finn's Food and Spirits has an outdoor patio. They bring in live music every weekend. It's a very laid back, but open and welcoming community. You were talking about activities that the museum has. One of the things that I'm extremely passionate about is our Tom and Becky program. I'm the coordinator for the program. It began in 1956, so it's been around a long time. It was created by the Chamber of Commerce here in Hannibal, Missouri, when 1,200 students from St. Louis were going to be visiting the Boyhood home, and they thought they needed something like a Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse to greet them. So they created a contest and selected a young boy and a young girl to be selected as Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher. Since 1956, we've continued to hold that competition, and we select 5 boys and 5 girls, and they travel all over the world. We've been to Bermuda, Japan, Canada, Europe, Mexico. We've been everywhere, and they represent Hannibal. And more than that, they speak on Mark Twain and keep his books alive.
Yeah, kind of like your own Mickey Mouse. I like that idea. So if people want to follow along or find out more or kind of dig into it, what's the best avenue to send them to?
Well, we do have a website. It's www.marktwainmuseum.org. And you can also find us. We're on Facebook. We have several Facebook pages. Music Under the Stars has one. Tom and Becky has one in the museum. Other festivals that we have, like Taste of Twain. We also are on Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram.
Experience the Great American Road Trip and take a ride on the nation's scenic byways and backroads that highlight rivers throughout the United States. Explore the people, places, and culture of river towns throughout the U.S. Visit rivertravelmagazine.com. You can subscribe to the River Travel Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.